If you've ever felt like maybe you're crazy for feeling so much, for being so sensitive, what if you're not crazy, but actually more intuitive than you've ever given yourself credit for? What if our feelings and our emotions can guide us to the best of who we are, to our inner guidance, to our ability to be our own inner healer? This is what we're talking about today on the Healing is Possible experience.
Okay, we're going.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, we're going.
Welcome to the show. I'm Rebecca Silence, author, media personality, and emotional healing and relationship coach. Every single week, we take you on a journey on the Healing is Possible experience towards more full self-expression, fulfillment, and freedom. Please welcome to the show today our very special sacred guest, Hope Hughes, who is one of the most powerful intuitive guides I'd ever had the pleasure of knowing and working with personally. And so excited for her to be joining us here today in this professional capacity to share her wisdom, her experience, and her guidance. Hope, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
I am too. So what I always like to start with is a very simple but not easy question. What does healing mean to you?
That's a wonderful question, because so many people have different ideas of what healing means and different expectations that they're going to feel different on the other side of healing, whatever that is for them. And so for me, healing just means finding a place where we're okay, getting to a place where we can understand and love ourselves exactly the way we are, and understanding that wherever we are today is part of a journey. Healing isn't a destination. Someday I'll be healed and everything's going to be perfect. The end. It doesn't work that way. It's a process. It's a journey. And so it's about learning about ourselves, learning about the world, and learning about our emotions and how we work as humans, as individuals, and all the roles that we take on. So
Yeah.
it's a tough question to answer, but I think it's a lot of those things.
Yeah. Well, and everyone watching, I want us to have our own, not just perspective, but definition of healing, because I think the healing conversation, especially when it comes to healing trauma, it can be a very disempowering one. And the purpose of this show and, my Healing is Possible brand is to help people just understand healing can be a journey of empowerment, of self-liberation. It's not about just going into the darkness and the depths of despair, but it means something different to each and every one of us. And one of the reasons that I respect and follow you in particular is I don't feel like you've got this cookie cutter approach to healing. You're not someone saying there's a right way to do it, or there's a wrong way to do it, or here's how to do it. And that's exactly what this show and my work is about. There's not a right or a wrong way to live, lead, love, heal. There's what works for you. But I think it's very daunting for so many people. Well, I don't know what it means to me. So we can all start with taking some time to reflect on what has healing meant to you? What do you want it to mean to you? And how do you define it for yourself? So with that being said, today's episode, I believe, is mostly about helping you connect to what it means to you and how to connect to inner guidance that allows you to live, lead, and heal your way. And I love what you talk about in your own personal journey, that there was a season where you felt like maybe you were crazy, and then you realized, no, you are highly intuitive. And that resonates with me so much, because I used to think, what is wrong with me? Am I crazy? No, I'm very intuitive myself. So can you tell us a little bit about your backstory and who you are and how you've arrived at the place where I would suggest you really are living on your terms, in control over your life, extremely and profoundly connected to your intuition and to the truth of who you are.
Yeah. So I was raised in a family that uh, really lived from the idea of we are motivated by fear. So the decisions that were made, um, just the frequency of everything was just fear based. My mother was and is very much the victim of everything in the world. There was abuse in my family. There was a lot of relocation and moving, and we were homeless for a while. So it was just picking up and moving, and it was just chaos. A lot of the times it was just chaos. And I didn't realize it, but being a sensitive child, a sensitive individual, it felt so off for me. Everyone else was sort of rolling with everything. And I was like in this horrible place of like, this is all wrong. Why are we like this? And I kept wanting to fix everyone else. I didn't realize it at the time. Looking back now, I can see that I was balancing everyone else's emotions. I was trying to make sure everyone else was okay. And I was really taking on like adult responsibilities as a very young child in the emotional arena. And again, I didn't realize this till I looked back and I was able to reflect on that and see that for what it was. But I didn't know what it meant to be sensitive. I didn't know what it meant to be intuitive. I saw, psychics on TV and thought, oh, I'm surely not that. So there was no connection there at all. And I did get, and I'm sure maybe you can identify with this as well, but I got a lot of, oh, you're too sensitive. That's not true. Why would you say that? Those kinds of things. So growing up, I didn't have anyone in my corner to tell me that the way I was feeling was okay or normal in any sense at all. So I really thought there was something wrong with me, that I was too sensitive. And I learned to really block it out. I learned to push it down. That's what I did with my emotions. I just pushed them down. I would literally swallow and then try to like push everything down so that I couldn't feel. There are blocks of my childhood that I don't remember at all. They're just gone. In the last few years, I've had little pieces come back here and there, which is a gift to have that understanding and that little piece come in so that I can identify with that and go, oh, that makes sense. But at the time, I just pushed everything down. I really wasn't allowed to feel. And I experienced something that I think a lot of sensitive people experience. Many of my family members, how do I say it? Sort of didn't care for me or didn't resonate with me. And so I often wasn't treated the same as some of the other people in my family because I couldn't go to that place of fear with them. Like I couldn't roll around in the misery. I couldn't roll around in the, this happened to me. Oh, me too. That resonance of we're all in this bad place. And I kept, no, but it's not that bad. And can't you see the light? But that they couldn't see it. And I lived in this like happy, rosy world and it didn't match those around me. And that was very, very difficult. As I got older, I began to feel like the black sheep or like the person that was ostracized from the family because they just couldn't resonate with who I was and I couldn't resonate with who they were. So it was a little bit difficult for me. And it wasn't until I got older that I began to step into more of my truth through a series of serendipitous events, things I never would have imagined, where people and situations showed up in my world to reflect back to me who I was through some of their stories, like your story, like so many stories that I've read have helped me so much to say, oh my gosh, maybe there's a piece of me in that story as well. And I had no idea. So coming back on the other side of it has allowed me to view my experiences with a new understanding. We talk about shadow work, we talk about the inner child, some of these things. I didn't have names for any of those things. Obviously, I didn't know what those were, but I began to see that all along I had been my own parent. And my disappointment had come from those older people around me that were supposed to parent me, supposed to protect me, weren't doing that. And so I learned to do that on my own. I've always been very independent. I've always been very not afraid to just jump into whatever and give it a try. And I think that served me really well, but it was very difficult along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there are a couple big pieces I want to pull out before we continue hearing more about where you are now. I think what you were saying about the blocks in childhood, I just want to let everybody know, you are so not alone. If you grew up feeling highly sensitive, confronted by that, and decided for the sake of survival that it wasn't safe to feel, that you needed to shut down, like, I'm the black sheep in the family. I mean, this typically, Hope, just so you're aware, is my audience. And what I describe it as is the generational healer in the family will feel in a lot of ways like something must be wrong with me, because it's so obvious that I can imagine so much more for my family, so much better, but nobody else seems to see it. So I must be the one that's wrong. So just thank you for being so transparent and helping us all see we're not alone. But then that experience of feeling like the black sheep, it can heal and transform and evolve and become useful. And then if there's any part of your childhood that you don't have access to, that you feel like you're blocking out or is blocked out, and that's concerning, I just want to share what a coach shared with me early on in my healing, because as I was starting to unrepress trauma, it very much felt scary, and I wasn't understanding what was happening. At first, I thought, are these dreams? Am I making this up? Because again, I think often, not for everyone, but that generational healer in the family, they'd rather be the one that's wrong about what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and what they're remembering than be in this place of really understanding this actually is toxic and dysfunctional, what's going on around me. I'm not the one that's wrong. So for me, I was starting to see things and have flashes and have memories that I would rather have. Something's wrong with me. This is a dream. This can't be right. This can't be right. This can't be right. And what my coach said to me at the time was, what you're ready to remember, you're going to remember when it feels safe enough. What you don't remember, no problem. If you need to remember it, you will. And it was life-changing for me to understand, okay, what I'm remembering, I'm not making up and I'm not crazy. And I must be remembering it because I'm ready to heal it. Anything I don't remember, I don't need to manufacture or manipulate or force the river. If and when I'm ready to remember, I'll remember. So I just thought it was really important for everyone watching to get some context around, the flooding of the memories. If you're remembering, get support immediately. And it's not necessarily your preference to face it, move through it, and conquer it and come out the other side of it. But if it's bubbling up, I'm just going to suggest you're more than capable. And with support, you can lean in here. And if you don't remember, no problem. We don't have to force that river. Do you have any additional thoughts you would say about this piece? I just thought, man, so many people out there are unnecessarily confronted with the idea of what they don't remember, what they do remember, and what to do with it.
What's really interesting about that is that my memories came back in a couple different categories, and I still don't remember everything. I still have a lot of blank areas. But what's really funny is that as I moved into my teen years and became a little bit more independent, the memories that I had made me angry. I was a very angry teenager. I was rebellious. My early 20s, I was just like, watch out, because I was not a happy person. I was angry. and I lashed out a lot, and I got in some trouble here and there. I just wasn't, right. I wasn't handling it really well. And um, the memories that have come back in more recently have actually been good memories.
Mm,
So I didn't expect that. So a little
yeah.
bit of background. My parents divorced when I was 5.5. I had no memories of my father. Zero. None. I never saw him again. We divorced. My mother remarried immediately. We moved. We moved out of state. He died while we were out of state. So he died when I was like 11 or 12. And we got a letter like, hey, your dad died. Okay,
Wow.
what's for dinner? Like that was literally like how I found out my dad died. And so there was just a lot of repressed anger. Like I was very angry at my mother for the way she handled things because I could have done it better, of course. So the memories that have been coming back have been memories of my father. My mother painted a picture of my father like he was a very bad person.
Wow.
And I believed what my mother told me because I was a child when she told me. And of course, we believe our parents because that's what we do. We don't know any better. And so I believed these things about my father. But the memories that came in showed me or had me feel, the memories had feelings. It was more feeling than it was vision or the knowledge. Had me feeling how much I loved my dad and how much I loved being around him and how safe I felt when he was in the house. So what I realized is that my mother had separated me from my father. And that's why I suppressed so much, was because I really wanted to be with him.
Wow.
But I all my life I thought, oh, he's a bad person, so I got nothing. Like I didn't believe that he was a good person. I thought he was a bad person. So the memories came in to show me like, you are a lot like your father. Do you remember how great he was? And so, it's a whole different perspective to have a good memory pop in. We don't expect that.
Well, I love that we went here, Hope, because you sharing this piece, I think, no pun intended, it gives people hope. It
Mhm.
isn't just about the healing journey, is not just about going into the dark and finding your way back to the light. That's a big part of it. But it is about getting to a place where the new baseline, I believe, and for so many of my clients over the years, I feel like this is the very reason they hire me. They want the vibration that they're in to be one of receiving and one of reciprocity, where they're getting back as much good as they're giving out and experiencing the best that life has to offer. And it is safe to allow in the opportunity to receive these good, joyful, hopeful, beautiful, loving memories. And I think, I used to be a singer. I was in the Denver Opera Company. And in vocal performance, you're practicing and you're warming up, and your ability to go high is contingent upon how low your range is, right? And that's how you expand your range. And emotionally, when we are willing to go into some of those lower, darker places, I think it does allow the opportunity to connect to and receive that opposite extreme. And I think that opposite extreme, the joy, the excitement, the higher vibration, can more and more become our default. And it is safe to receive that. But sometimes we're more comfortable in the dark. And sometimes, because we're still in survival without meaning to be, we can protect ourselves from allowing all that good. I know for me, it was very confronting to realize, and there's so much here. Let me just bottom line a couple of major points. I mean, Hope went from a career of, I don't know if you would describe it as safety and security, but it wasn't what spoke to your soul, to being willing to risk it all. And now she's a full-time psychic, intuitive, healer, Reiki master, phenomenal coach, living life on her terms, and, works at one of the most nationally renowned metaphysical shops, in the country, in the United States. And you were a single mom that went bankrupt, that had to figure it out, that, you've made your life yours. And I, in my own way, have also, gone from what felt like a safe and secure career to taking a risk and living into my gifts exclusively, being a single mom, going bankrupt. The point is, it's not handed to us, but we have what it takes to pursue a joy-filled life. But what I was going to say is, even after having my company and my second marriage and feeling like I had my footing, the emotion of joy felt terrifying to me. What's going to happen if I just let myself truly radiate and receive joy in a reciprocal fashion? It was very confronting. And we don't have to be scared of the good. We can trust that we can leave survival and use survival to connect more to the truth of who we are, and more to our gifts, and more of our emotions, and let it all be welcome.
I love that you bring this to light. And that's the comment I want to make about that, is about light. So as I resonated with being the victim, as I resonated with the anger, as I resonated with, I somehow got gypped in this world, right? As I resonated with all those things, I saw that in my world. It was reflected back to me, through my divorce, my bankruptcy, and all the fears that I had that were, I believe, learned, because we learned that we don't come out of the womb like, I'm afraid of everything. We
Right.
learn these things. So as my frequency shifted, as I said, and I've always been one to take chances, but more and more so in the pursuit of joy now, and helping others and sharing my story and being in my gifts, right? So as I began to step out of victim mentality and out of some of that fear and saying, like, yeah, what if I looked at the dark stuff? Can it hurt me today? Maybe it doesn't feel okay, but maybe I'll learn something from it. And as I began to do that, I began to resonate with the frequency of light. And that sounds like a dichotomy. It doesn't sound like that's possible. But I believe that's why those memories then were able to come in, because I had blocked everything that had to do with happiness in my childhood. There was no happy moments in my childhood. It was all horrible. It was bad. And that was my story. And so as I began to go, yeah, there were pieces that were bad. Let's look at that. Okay. It is what it is. And how do I heal through this now? And how do I work with this energy of feeling like I don't deserve, or I'm a victim, or bad things are going to happen to me at every turn? And so I really think it's a frequency shift that allowed me to see, like, you weren't miserable the whole time. You had some happy moments. You had happy memories. There were pieces in there, as most of us can identify with, yeah, this was horrible and this was fun. And even though this thing happened, I went to that birthday party that time and I had a great time. Or I got to go to this carnival, or, something that was fun in our childhood. But in my mind, everything was bad.
Mhm.
I threw the baby out with the bathwater. It was all bad. And so as I began to change my frequency and I began to see things differently and see the opportunities I had and see how those things that happened to me, I designed. I signed up for the PhD course. I said, send me down to earth and I'm going to do this thing. And I'm not afraid of getting messy on the way through the process. And as I began to take responsibility for my circumstances and the way I feel and the things that happened to me, I see now that I designed this in a way that allowed me to have a hero's journey, allowed me to say, like, I came through the mess and came out despite everything that I've been through. Because it's just a journey. It's just the way I saw things then. And so now I see things differently.
Yeah. Well, and what I love is, I think the ultimate testimony around healing being possible is when life is exactly how we want it. And how do we create that without contrast? And I do believe what we learn in childhood that keeps us in survival can very much be unlearned, and that our life is about our soul's evolution. And it's not our fault, but it's our work when we notice resistance, when we notice we want to guard our heart, when we want to repeat the self-protection ways of coping and managing the past and our pain as adults that keep us in the same experience we had growing up. We get to do that differently, and I don't think it's about finding blame in any way, shape, or form for the situation or the person that hurt us. It's about knowing I don't have to live this anymore. I don't have to repeat this. And my life can be so different than it was. And not even necessarily because of how bad or hard or horrible it was, but just because that's not the vibration that resonates anymore. That's not the experience that resonates anymore. I'll share last night, and Hope knows my family. She knows my husband, Mark. I come home last night, Hope, and I'm, long day, just ready to relax. I walk in the front door. My 8-year-old has a hostess stand set up at the front door and welcomes me to Chez Fancy, which is our family restaurant. I didn't know last night was going to be a Chez Fancy night. I walk in, there's jazz music playing, there's candles lit, the house smells beautiful. Mark's cooked this beautiful meal. Seneca and her friend have set the table, my 8-year-old. And I thought, this is so simple and so beautiful and beyond my dream come true. That as a little girl, I never imagined I'd have this much love, this much just sacredness in the environment and in the energy. And it's so beautiful and it's so peaceful and it's so grounded and it's so connected. And the reason I share this story is because what if your ability to connect to your intuition and to what is correct and right for you now is all that's required to create a new experience and a new environment and new possibilities that maybe you fantasized about but aren't quite believing are possible for you. So from here, Hope, give us the masterclass, because I couldn't agree more. I mean, I always say, okay, God, thanks for the advanced class. Thanks for the doctorate, right? In human behavior, in emotions, in love, in relationship, in life. I think that contrast is so beautiful and important, but we all get to decide. And I think this is so big. Enough contrast. Got it. Now it's time for the next level. So let's take people there now. How do they connect to their inner world, to their intuition and intuitive gifts and emotions in a way that guides them home and sets them up for whatever the hell they want from here on out? Give us the masterclass,
Okay.
please.
So
thank you.
We all have this internal guidance system. Every one of us. It doesn't matter if you think you're intuitive or you don't think you're intuitive. Okay. The second thing to remember is that we are all intuitive, whether you think you are or not. Humans, it's just who we are. Humans were designed to work with more than the 5 senses that our physical body gives us. Okay. So when I work with people, I work with a lot of empathics. I do classes for empaths. I do classes for highly sensitive people. I teach people how to feel and work with energy, their own energy and the energy of the world. So that's really my specialty, is sensing and seeing and feeling energy within me and without. And so I teach people how to do this. So the first thing to understand is that everything is energy. Everything is energy. Everything you feel, everything you sense. And 99.99% of the time, someone says, I'm not intuitive. I said, have you ever met someone and felt instantly attracted to them before they even opened their mouth? People say yes. And if I say, have you ever met someone and everybody loves them and they seem great, something about them just says, like, don't go there. Don't trust that person. And your intuition turned out to be right for whatever reason. Okay. That's your intuition. That's the piece that guides you. Your intuition works in concert with your imagination, and with your emotions and your feelings. So this is a system that you have innately within you. Okay. Many, many years ago, when I stepped out of my first Tony Robbins event, way back in the day, this is really what shifted things for me, because he told me, I was like in the front row, like, oh, Tony, right? And he told me, you get to choose how you feel. And I went, what? This is new. Up until that point, I'd just been, I feel like this, I feel like this, I feel like this. And I had been led by like every emotional win that I had. That was just my life. But when I began to understand that I could observe my emotions, not be the anger, but see that I felt angry, or not be the jealousy, but see that I feel some jealousy there. Like being aware of my emotions was that first step. Like, oh, I feel this way. Simple as that, just being aware of it without judging myself. And the next step was for me to say, like, well, where's that coming from? What's going on here? Is there a reason why I feel that way? When did I start feeling this way? What other time in my life have I felt this way? How is this familiar to me? Where did this, where are other examples? I'll say where it started, but where are other examples where I have felt this way? And I began to learn about myself and my emotions. It's important to understand that we're all different. Your emotions are going to be different than mine. Your navigation system is going to be a little bit different than mine. So trusting what you feel is so important, because no one can tell you for a fact or black and white, this means this for everyone. It might be some people, it might be most people, but it can't be that way for everyone, because we're all different. And that's what makes us beautiful. That's what makes us all fit together like the perfect puzzle that we are. Like all the pieces come together in the world for us all to like collaborate and bring our talents and our gifts to the world. We're all different.
Yeah.
Starting
And I
with
have,
emotions.
before we go into the emotions, I have a couple of quick thoughts here, because what you're talking about, energy, intuition, emotions, feelings. Okay, let's break this down for people. The first thing I want to ask is, how do we know the difference between the energy that's mine and the energy, because of my highly sensitive nature and empathic nature, that isn't mine, that I'm feeling? I want to have you speak to that.
Yes. Yeah, that's really
so
important.
Right?
And I get that question a lot. Like when I run the empath classes, or I work with someone one-on-one who's highly sensitive or empathic, sometimes they don't even realize it. But the best way to separate that, right, is first of all, to notice, what am I feeling? Okay. So say I'm feeling sad. Is there something I'm sad about? If my train of thought, okay, I'm driving down the street, right? I'm driving down the street. I see a Denny's. I think, oh, the last time I was at a Denny's was with my brother in 2018. My brother committed suicide. Yeah, that's real. That memory just came back to me. Oh, that makes me feel sad. Okay. Example one. Example two is, I'm driving down the street and I'm thinking, oh, I need to go to the grocery store. So I pull off the road and I go to the grocery store, and in my mind, I'm thinking I need to get this, our normal thoughts, right? Or maybe they're all over the place. But then all of a sudden I feel sad. Where did that come from? And so you'll ask yourself, is that my sadness? It might have triggered something that I'm feeling within me, but maybe it started somewhere else. So you see, one of them is a little bit like a train, like, oh, that leads to this, this leads to this. I feel this way, right? Where it becomes really difficult is when we're in households with others. Because when we're at the grocery store and all of a sudden we feel angry or we feel sad, we go, well, maybe that's not mine. Maybe I'm picking up on someone else's emotions. But when we're close to someone, like our children or our spouse or our parents, our family members, that's when there's all this bleed over, because we feel their emotions and then we attempt to balance them. So it's almost like they become ours or our responsibility. Okay. So it's asking those questions of yourself. Do I want to feel this way? Is this mine? sometimes keeping a journal around our emotions and seeing those patterns, because it does get a little bit difficult to untangle some of that. Does that make sense?
I think this is really, really good. And the way I think about it for myself is once the energy is impacting me, it doesn't matter why it's here or where it comes from. It doesn't need a reason. Who am I going to be and how am I going to co-create with this energy? I don't want people thinking that their energy, their emotions are because of the external. I think just like we were talking about earlier with the memories, they surface when they're ready to be related to and moved through and
Mhm.
worked with. And we can always do that in a way that liberates us even more and
Mhm.
makes us even more free and even more healed. And I think
Yeah.
just being aware of, wow, some of this energy isn't mine. And, we're both cancer survivors. For me, I was like, these big, dark, sensitive, difficult energies and emotions and feelings I'm having around my relationship with my body, for example, this is so mine. And I'm going to do this for every woman that came before me and every woman that's going to come after me, because I never saw a woman growing up in my family in a healthy, respectful relationship with their body.
Mhm.
And so I knew I get to play a game with myself, that I'm doing this for all of us. It's mine. And some of this is just energy that I believe my ancestry has never had the skill set or the ability to process. So I go first. I'm going to take it on. So whatever it is for you, for everybody that's watching, just know you don't have to be threatened by energy, and you don't have to be at the effect of energy, whether it's yours or other people's. And you can start to play a game where you go, is this mine? And then let your intuition give you some perspective and some answers, so that it's not your ego trying to give you perspective and answers. So then the next question I have for you, Hope, is how do you define intuition? So for me, I know it's intuition versus just feelings, thoughts, beliefs, energies, emotions, when it's just so clear that, and there's no charge. Like intuition doesn't have a charge in my world. How do you know it's intuition?
That's a wonderful question, because in the beginning, I didn't. I didn't believe I was intuitive. So I didn't think anything was intuition. I thought it was all logic, deduction, whatever. How I know it's intuition, I can't speak to everyone, but how I know it's intuition, I usually have a vision.
Okay.
Something will pop into my head, like a picture pops into my head. That's why I said earlier, it's so tied to my imagination. And so my question for me is always, is it my imagination or is it my intuition? What I have found works for me, or how I can tell it apart, is oftentimes I'm going to go twofold. The first is if I ask a question, whether purposely or I just have a question or I'm just curious about something, the answer will pop in for me, or it'll show up in my world. Okay. So it's sort of like putting it out there and then I get the response back. It's sort of that question answer kind of thing. But sometimes I'm just going through my day and I just get something. It'll usually just pop in for me. Like it just shows up. When I'm having conversation with someone, it'll come in as a feeling, right? It'll come in as a feeling. Sometimes I'll feel their emotions in a way that now I know is not mine, because I can sense that it's theirs. I'll see it in them. Okay. And when I say see, it comes in sort of like an overlay for me. It comes in like, you know how we're talking right now, but if I say, hey, can you picture your kitchen and where's your microwave? You can go, yeah, because it's in a memory and you can see me, but you can also see that. It comes in that way for me. So sometimes it's an overlay of what I'm already seeing with my eyes, but it's coming in through my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
I see it that way. And when I work with others, I find out that they go, oh, I thought that was just my imagination. And I say, pay attention to that. So it's this awareness. It's not like one size fits all, like everybody do it this way, but it's an awareness of what your mind is showing you at that time, or what you're feeling or sensing or knowing. And the knowing is the one I've had since I was a child. And that can be the hardest one to identify. It's called claircognizance. And when we just know something, we think we just know it. Doesn't everybody know it? Isn't it obvious? No, maybe not. And that's probably the most difficult one to identify because it comes in just like a thought. It doesn't really feel a lot different.
Yep.
But sometimes when something hits me very, very strongly, something I really need to know, or something that's very important, a new awareness or a truth. Okay. And this is what my emotions will often lead me to, or this awareness will lead me to, is this truth. And when the truth hits me, it will often make me emotional. When I began to go through this journey, I would speak to one of my best
So
friends,
good.
and I would be telling her something, and all of a sudden I would just be bawling, and I'm like, hold on, I have to cry through this. And she'd be like, what's going on? I'm like, I hit my truth. I hit my truth. And every time I hit something that was just so true,
Yeah.
I would feel it so deeply. And I am so emotional that for me, it just comes out in blubbering tears for just maybe a few minutes even. But I'm like, oh, that's the truth. Or I'll listen to someone else's podcast and there'll be a little piece of something and I'll pause it and I'll go, oh my gosh. And I'll just start to bawl because I'll know it hits something within me and it comes in very powerfully. So I hope there's pieces of that in that other people can resonate with. But
Well,
that's
I love
what it
it.
is for me.
I think this is brilliant because, first of all, I teach the practice of emotional healing. I don't know how to be clear and connected to my inner guidance when I'm emotionally clogged up and funky. So just consider that the leaning into the emotion is the unveiling of, wait a minute, what not just is underneath my truth, but what's correct and right and next for me based on that. That's where I think the internal guidance is so powerful, right? And you can know it's not your truth when it feels like shit, when it feels suffocating, when it's constricting and limiting and restricting you. It's not your truth. So there's something underneath it to get to so that you can get to your next right move. And that I think is so powerful because there isn't always something to do. There's something to do when it's obvious, but how do we know it's taking us into a direction of more possibility or keeping us stuck in our past and in limited possibility? It feels expansive. But I don't know how to connect to that expansion without being willing to move through whatever emotions need to be felt and moved through. And so I love the way you're describing this because our emotions are our guidance system, and anything that's learned that's coping. For example, you mentioned earlier the difference between sadness and jealousy. I teach that we're not born knowing how to be jealous. We learned it. It's a coping skill. Our feelings about the external are learned ways of managing and coping. Our emotions, they're just there. And there is no threat, but we're programmed to think because our family system growing up couldn't handle our emotions. And we thought, oh, I have to shut it down because it'll make things worse. We can't handle it. It's going to create too much trouble to be emotional, that the world can't handle our emotions just like our families did. Our world, the people around us, but more importantly, ourselves, we can handle the truth of our emotions and the truth that's underneath it and the guidance that's underneath that. And anyone that isn't resonating or a vibrational match, there will be dissonance. That will fall away. It won't work. But we don't have to be afraid of it. Any more thoughts that you have on this piece?
Yeah, I love that because I think it's exactly my guidance system. Many years ago, I came up with this idea and I thought I was crazy, but I came up with this idea. It's so profound. I'm going to lay it on you. It goes like this. If it feels good, move towards it. If it feels bad, move away. And I started living my life by this. My children actually thought I was crazy. This was years ago, before I even realized I was intuitive. And I was like, what if just things that felt good, I just expanded those? And what if things that felt bad, I just kind of was like, no. And that's like my external, not necessarily just the emotions, but the external guidance system, right? So if it's like, well, that doesn't feel good. Why would I want to do that? Why would that job doesn't feel good, but it pays more money? Yeah, but it doesn't feel good. Right. And so every time I began to follow that, I saw this pattern. that was empowering, like the universe, God, spirit, whatever, would reward me when I said no to the thing that seemed logical but didn't feel good, and said yes to the thing that was like, this is crazy, but I just feel like I'm supposed to do this. It seems like fun. I'm drawn towards this person or this thing or this situation, and something else would unfold. Like that would lead to that, which leads to that, which I believe is that state of flow. So that's when you are listening to your emotions and your how you feel about things, which are so tied together often, right? When we follow that, we tend to be more in flow. We're honoring our energetics, we're honoring how we feel. And then I say, being rewarded. Like things literally showed up in my world that were like, you made this crazy decision to do this thing that didn't even make any sense at all. But then this happened and that happened and that happened. And there you are. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. So it was like almost like the universe was teaching me to follow my joy, to expand, right? To live in a place of light, to live in a place of hope, to live in a place of this can be fun. This can be more than what I was used to.
So beautiful. I said to a client recently, if you can survive survival, you can survive alignment, right? And we
Yes.
don't trust it because we know we can survive survival. We know we can survive with the difficulties and the challenges and the heartbreak and, all of this trauma from the past still being with us. I just want people to understand you're not going to die. Nobody's going to die. Nothing bad is going to happen because you connected to alignment. Life will continue to be life, but you being aligned and letting go of your disconnection from your own intuition and intuitive gifts, it's not necessary to stay disconnected, and nobody's going to get hurt because you got aligned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting how sometimes we think like flow or happiness or abundance and expansion is scary to us because for me, I was used to living in survival mode. I was used to fixing and solving and working through and pushing. I was used to that. And it kind of got to where it felt good. Like, oh, this challenge came on. It was so debilitating, but then I moved through it. And that for me, I think was a little bit of like this sort of addiction of like, I have to fix something. I have to be doing all the time. Right. And now I'm like, what if I didn't care about that problem? What if I don't care what they think of me? What if I don't care? What if I just don't give it my energy? Would I like something different? Maybe. Can I change other people? Maybe not. And when I let go of some of that, it was just like, this feels like what I want to do. This feels exciting to me. This is the next place I want to go. Like, this is just my joy. And the more I do that, the more the universe, spirit, whatever, again, whatever you want to call it, just shows up for me and says, well, okay, well, you made this decision or you went with that. Well, now how about this? And I go, what? Okay. And it just keeps showing up. Now, not that challenges don't show up too. And I take care of those things. I still do the dishes and I still go to the grocery store and I still do the stuff we got to do and make tough decisions about things sometimes, right? And witness other people in their stuff. And that has been one of the hardest things for me because as I move towards my joy and as I, raise my frequency, that's a buzzword out there. We can talk about what that means. But as I step into more of my light, we'll say, the contrast between where I feel I am vibrating and what I see in the world is huge. There's this big gap because before I was in it, I was in the blah of all the icky in the world. And now I'm not in that every day. And there's that contrast there. So when I watch other people or I witness family members still running their program and doing their thing, that is the right thing for them, no judgment there. But it can be difficult for me to watch. And that's something that comes up so often in my sessions with people. They're like, well, I'm raising my vibration. I'm doing this thing, but these people aren't. How do I get them with me? And that's been a big question with what's going on in the world these days. And of course, fill in the blank there because there's so much going on. But yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this up because for me, I see it as the more I heal and model this possibility, the more I'm actually blessing the world,
Yes.
not I need everyone I love to catch up to give me permission to stay here. But my willingness and commitment to give myself permission to stay here, even with the very obvious truths going on globally that are devastating and heartbreaking, this is still the correct choice. Me being as aligned as possible, as high vibration as possible, as healed as possible, this is the best medicine for me. And it's a blessing to the world. What do you tell yourself and what do you tell your clients around this? Because it is, I'm so glad you brought this up, very real. The darkness is real, so is the light. And just because you've defaulted to the light doesn't mean everyone you love wants that for themselves or is interested in pursuing that for themselves or even understands its possibility.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing with this now, and oftentimes my guides will come in and give me information about this as well, to give me this broader perspective, more of the like the collective than just my own experience. So what I'm seeing and feeling in this is that, again, going back to we're all energy, some of us are choosing the light. We're choosing to feel okay. We're choosing to feel empowered and enlightened and all those things. What we're doing in this is we're showing others who choose to see it. Okay. I mentioned, Tony Robbins earlier. If Tony had just said like, hey, the world is not ready for me. I can't do this. I'm the only one doing this. I wouldn't have looked up at him on the stage and said, oh my God, that's possible. Right. So when we look at collective energy, right, it's like thinking that the drop of blue food coloring and, in a gallon of water won't change the color of it. It does. So our energy is changing or adding to or becoming part of the frequency of the collective. So not only are we interacting with an individual or a person who may choose to resonate with our energy, to resonate with something that's different than maybe what they're used to, but we are contributing to the collective in our own way. And that's where change comes from. It doesn't come from changing the family member or changing the other person. And many of us, I used to be there, think that I have to change these other people. They need to be happy so I can be happy. It's my responsibility for me to do me, to be me in the best version of me I possibly can day to day. And that changes day to day. And that, I believe, is what flavors or colors the collective and the individuals, whether they are in contact with us or they're just in our frequency, in our auric field. That energy emanates the same way you can empath. We never think about this. The same way you can empath something icky or negative, you can empath something beautiful and wonderful.
Love this.
Okay.
Amen.
So it's so important that we are in understanding the power that we have isn't just about me and my little world, but it's about the collective. It really is. And as this message gets out, or someone hears this, or I just say hi to someone on the street, right? There's an energy there because we all carry energy.
So beautiful. I can't thank you enough for this conversation, for the work you do in the world. Please share with us how people can get in touch with you.
You can go to my website. It's just my name. It's hopehughes.com, very simply. From there, you can find my links to YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, any of those ways there. I'm also, you'll find it on my website. I'm in a store physically a couple days a week, and you can also find me there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, this has been such a beautiful conversation for everyone watching. Remember, there's not a right or a wrong way to connect to your inner guidance, but what if your sensitivity isn't a negative? What if you're more intuitive or even more able to connect to your intuition and inner guidance than you've allowed for yourself? And what if there's only good on the other side of you giving yourself permission to connect to your intuitive guidance, to let go of any fear that you're crazy or something's wrong with you, and to just move forward as you, connected on the deepest level to you? Healing is not promised, but it is possible. And not just for some of us, I really believe for all of us. Thank you for joining us today on the Healing is Possible experience. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Click that bell, share this episode with anyone that you know it would touch and have a positive impact on. And we will see you again very, very soon. Thank you again. And Hope, love you all so much. Thank you for being one who took the time to listen and to be with us for this conversation. There's only benefit on the other side of you connecting more to your truth, to your intuition. And we're so excited for you. Love you. See you all soon. Thank you, Hope.